I bet I drill a clean hole in somebody today.
Here's another interesting tweet, and it is a possible explanation for Tekken 8's recent troubles. Bandai Namco Studios has been deep in red for the last 2 years. The expensive failure of Blue Protocol put them in a dire financial situation, requiring a massive reduction in workforce. One way for Tekken Project to get relief is to convince Bandai Namco of the game's long-term prospect. How do you do that? Outside metrics like Steam reviews, events attendance, etc. Harada, Murray, and Nakatsu are visibly stressed from the outwork under these conditions. The downplay of the backlash may not be them trying to undermine players, but may instead be them trying to, downplay it to their, corporate overlords. Speculation: Tekken 8 Season 2 had ambitions to make a big splash, Tekken 7 Season 2, but with the reduced and maybe restructured workforce, they rushed it out, relaxing ordinary QC process. On top of this, still believed nothing was wrong with the vision due to the good launch sales. A lot of that was because of what Tekken 7 did, and maybe it gave them the false idea that what they were doing was good, but results: numerous obvious issues like Jack's clap move, pause unblockable, made it into the release. A lot of new moves with ridiculous properties, inconsistent direction like Shahid's move becoming -13, other characters get plus on block homing mids, a perfect storm. The Season 2 release was justly planned, and B&E were in the most vulnerable position as possible to be receptive to this feedback. If you do a sober assessment, they clearly adjusted their vision in response. No, they were never going to revert Season 2 or turn the game back to Tekken 6. I agree with that. With the latest patch, things are in a good direction. This is the best state Tekken 8 has ever been in, but the pace of change is slow for two reasons. They've tightened up the QC process, and they still have a reduced, particularly restructured workforce. And this is probably why they can't just flood the game with a whole lot of new changes. That's something I was thinking about. It's like, if they could change more stuff, they probably would. Because even though when we look at the patch notes, we say, this is nothing, you do got to keep in mind, how many pages was that? 4 pages, 5 pages of nothing but fixes. They have a balancing team that does that. They have other people on the team who do cosmetics and they test cosmetics. There's other people who test stages. People simplifying and improving defense to only nerfs, no buffs, but you can have buffs that also help defense. A buffing Punisher from 15 frame to 14 frame kind of does that. Devil Jin is rewarded for defending more. You are punished for attacking more. Put aside while standing to mix up potential. Everyone always says nerf offense, but you can also indirectly nerf offense by buffing defense.
VTE Seeking has donated $10 and says Harada saying they want to use Discord today instead of Twitter right after your live stream was called Twitter 8.
I mean, it was getting ridiculous, bro. The way that players just complained about, the game, and that was the most meta thing to do, is to get on Twitter and cry. I mean, it was kind of sad. Yes, we want them to listen to players, but we want them to also have a vision. Let's keep going with this tweet. Does this mean Devil Jin needs it? No, but on its own, that Wild Standing 2 change is in line with making defense stronger. He needs his Hell Sweep gutted before he can be an interesting character, but the flip side that involves buffing his other moves, you could say just do those changes all at once, but then you're back at the problem of reduced manpower and demand for a better QC process. If you still think they aren't listening because your pet issue isn't fixed yet, I'll be blunt. Most of the feedback they've received is garbage. Almost all of it is naked bouncing and whining, skill issue, and trolling. Very little actionable feedback, even fewer good insights. What was that resounding response to 200 HP change? This nerf pokes boo. A ridiculous claim that never made sense and isn't how things played out at all. Reality: huge nerf to heat, more chance to recover chip damage, nerf to combos and hell sweeps, less volatile in first to 2. Players are very quick to react and say stuff. When Season 2 dropped, what did everyone say about Lee and Law? That was simply because they weren't what the players wanted them to be. But just because the characters aren't what you want them to be doesn't mean they're low tier and needs to be buffed. We saw that people don't really consider Law to be trash anymore, and then we saw Main Man put out a apology saying that Lee is really powerful. If you think about some of the other characters people say are trash, Or if you think about some of the other characters that people say are powerful, what if we're wrong? The players operate as if we're right all the time, and that can create problems. The main problem with 200 HP change, which has barely been pointed out by anyone, was its effects on installs. Characters like Eddie, June, Lydia now have more time with their install maxed out than originally intended, leaving them overtuned and in need of adjustments. Well, see, I don't understand the install. Yoshimitsu doesn't have one, and I understand very little about the other characters. Like, I don't even know what Eddie's does. I think Lydia gives her a damage boost, and I think Jun Kazama gives her access to 3 new moves, right? But the people who do understand it, they should talk about that, but maybe they won't because they're trying to protect their character. There's a lot of that going on. Imagine yourself in a position of a game designer reading Nee and Arsenal tweets. What is actionable content? Why is 2 week? X nerf is okay. How? Why? What changes would you want them to make? What would those changes achieve? They were wrong about Steve. I mean, in my opinion, I think everyone is always wrong about everything, in my opinion. I mean, we could go back to Tekken 7 and we could talk about that game and how people were wrong all over the place. This is what I've always said, and I'll continue to say it. The players are just as responsible for the way that the games turn out. And I would argue at times more responsible than the developers. The way that Tekken 7 ended, that was definitely the fault of the pro players. Arsenal put out that long document that they listened to. Main Man made videos. Nee made tweets. The way that Tekken 7 ended was on those guys. It was on the developers for listening to them, but it was on those guys for making stupid suggestions, and it's just being facts. Like, we even see now with Arsenal and Nee, that little brief battle that they had where they were both trying to get each other's characters nerfed. How is that helping us, the players? If the developers were to listen to behavior like that, it would hurt us. But this is a really interesting question. What is the actionable content in that feedback? That's an interesting question. I think if people not only said why they want a character to be buffed or nerfed, but if they also explain what the change would achieve, that's when we'll be able to see who's really what. Everyone can say, oh yeah, buff Devil Jin, get 500 likes and go eat their dinner. But if you have to explain what about Devil Jin needed to be buffed and what will it achieve in terms of his gameplay in the grand scheme of Tekken, we'll be able to see. Keep in mind that character balance is not that high of a priority. The vast majority of players don't play this game professionally. It's only 0.001% who are seriously affected by their characters being top 1 versus top 5 versus top 10. For everyone else, the balance is good enough. And that's the thing. Like, you have average players complaining about the game, complaining about characters. And I think it's the mindset of the pro players that's poison. It's poisoned all of us. Everyone now loses and they blame the game and the character for their loss instead of embracing it as a skill issue. And this is why, once again, going back to Harada saying he wants to create a Discord where people can put their complaints, I think, once again, separating the crying from Twitter would be a really good suggestion. Take all of the balancing stuff off the front page of trending Twitter and put it in some Discord somewhere so the majority of the players don't think about it every single day. The Nina players were very riled up by that conversation between Arslan and Nee. You had the Nina players off doing their own thing, minding their own business, and then here come the pro players, and now the Nina players are all in the comment section. Take that discussion somewhere else, pro players. For most of us, the issue with the game aren't character balance. It's like excessive 50-50, high risk guessing, volatility, slow repetitive gameplay, visual clutter, misleading or inconsistent mechanics, unrewarding feedback, suboptimal netcode, cheaters, etc. A lot of this I 100% agree with. The biggest issue for me is repetitive gameplay and unrewarding feedback. Those two things make me, once again, when you talk about me not wanting to get God of Destruction, why would I? My character is super overpowered. I'm doing the same Oki. I'm doing the same flowcharts. My opponent can't stop it at all. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. That is and was the biggest issue for me. Moon Lion, he's scared of those ranked demons. That's what they say. None of these things have anything to do with character balance. Low tier characters are just as guilty of these things. Comparison to other characters aren't necessary. We don't need to justify changes based on what top tier character supposedly is or isn't. It's certainly possible to read all of Twitter and phase out the good and bad feedback, but that requires a lot of time and skill to synthesize the endless stream of mostly junk into actionable feedback. You need a skilled game designer working around the clock. They're already short on resources, plus keep in mind that developers largely don't speak English. No, this isn't Murray's job. He can translate, but he's not a game designer. He's not equipped to determine what's skill issue, what's trolling, and what's serious feedback. The best thing the community can do to help is deliver feedback in a manner that is actually useful. Be specific about what problems are and what you think will fix them and why. Be informed, make sure your feedback is grounded in reality and has clear insight goals. This isn't to say that feedback from people is unwarranted. I strongly believe that the synthesis of the idea behind old and new Tekken is possible in a way that satisfies both old and new fans, but just go back to Tekken 5 Tag 2 is not a serious path forward to synthesis. Good job, Moon. Your reading is getting much better. Bro's about to upset me. This is how complex the conversation around Tekken 8 is getting. People are really like diving deep into what is making this game something that players don't like, but also not just focusing on the don't like. What are the things that players do like?